Good morning. I'm Chris Kershner, President and CEO of the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm joined today by U.S. Senator Rob Portman to talk about the impacts on the Dayton area business community from the latest COVID relief package that was recently passed in Washington, D.C. Just as a note, Senator Portman was there for us in the very beginning. When the very first COVID relief package was passed last spring, on April 1st, 2020, Senator Portman did one of these informational videos to get the word out to the business community immediately. Since then, him and his entire staff have been a great friend to the Dayton area business community. They've been in Dayton meeting with businesses and talking to our business leaders who have taken advantage of the COVID relief package, including PPP and many other stimuluses that were available. I'm excited to have Senator Portman back with us today to really talk about the latest COVID relief package and what that means for our businesses as we enter 2021. Senator Portman, thanks for joining us.
You bet. Thank you, Chris.
I know you've been, it's been busy, and you've had some, while some of us have been enjoying the holidays, you've been busy working on this package.
Yeah. Well, it's an important package. And let me say to the chamber, I don't know a chamber in the state that's done a better job of communicating with its members about what's available. And therefore, I have found that a lot of the Dayton area businesses have been helped. And as you know, I've visited a number of them personally, learned their stories, figured out how the PPP program in particular, the Paycheck Protection Program, which allows them to effectively get a grant, assuming they use a loan from the federal government for business expenses like salaries, like mortgage or rent. So it's a good program. And it's actually, in some cases, according to some of the business leaders I've talked to in the Miami Valley, it's enabled them not just to stay open, but to keep their employees. And that was the absolute intent of it. Unfortunately, as you know, it ran out on August 8th, and it took Congress way too long, in my view, to come up with the next stage of PPP. We've now done that. So those businesses that took advantage of it have a chance to do so again. Other businesses who did not apply for whatever reason or didn't qualify have a chance to take a look at this. The new PPP program is a little more targeted. You have to show a revenue loss year to year, quarter to quarter, at least 1 quarter in this year compared to last year, or 2020 compared to 2019. So it's a little more targeted on businesses that have a revenue loss. But it also has some qualities that make it more useful for a lot of businesses in Dayton. And that is, it provides a full deductibility of the expenses like salary expenses, even if you get a loan that then converts to a grant for that purpose. So deductibility is in there, and that's retroactive, which is important to a lot of Dayton businesses who are looking at some pretty big taxes here at the end of the year. And some of them, frankly, did not have the revenue flow to be able to do that. So that's more helpful to them. It also lowers it from 500 to 300 employees, so it focuses more on smaller businesses, but it provides about $300 billion in additional funding. And this is great for Ohio. We've already used about $8 billion in Ohio, in the Dayton area. There are hundreds of businesses who are taking advantage of this, and it's a good program for them. And we're standing by to help you, Chris, and to help individual businesses if they have questions about it, how to apply. You basically go through your financial institution, whether it's a big bank, a small bank, a credit union, farm credit, whatever it is. And they are now much better prepared, frankly, than they were initially to deal with it and to work with the Small Business Administration and Treasury. But there's another program too that I think it might be useful talking about. Would that be helpful, Chris, to talk about the Employee Retention Tax Credit?
Yeah, that'd be perfect. That's something that's on our members' minds. And if you could give them a little intelligence on that, it'd be much appreciated.
That's great. Well, the businesses who were not eligible for PPP for whatever reason, including the number of employees they had, and the same happens now, or otherwise think it's not as useful for them, have been able to take advantage of what's called the Employee Retention Tax Credit Program. In this latest CARES package, this rescue package that was just passed a couple weeks ago, we expanded and strengthened that program. That was one of my priorities in the bill. I'm on the Finance Committee. It was one of the things that I asked Republicans and Democrats alike to work on and to help these businesses, because it's not a partisan issue at all. I was a member of a group of 10 senators, 5 Republicans and 5 Democrats, who took on the task of putting together a COVID-19 package when the leadership on both sides was not moving. And frankly, it's what got people, past the political intransigence, and the partisanship, and got people talking together. But part of what I've been promoting and what ended up in the final package is a employee retention tax credit expansion. So you can get a tax credit that's refundable if you are keeping employees on board and you have a revenue loss. And again, it's an attempt to try to ensure that you can keep your doors open, but also keep your folks working. So it's a $10,000 credit. Again, we've expanded it and made it more attractive. So anybody who's interested in that, let us know too. I think it's underutilized, frankly, and it might be quite helpful for some employers. The other thing I wanted to mention is that there's a lot in this bill that helps in terms of the overall effort, which helps everybody, businesses, families. Unemployment insurance was extended, as you know, and the federal side of it was increased to try to help people who lost their jobs through no fault of their own. Think somebody who worked at a movie theater or a bar or a bowling alley or a restaurant, or is in the travel business, like the coach business. So that's in there. Also for the healthcare side, it has more funding for the hospitals, and I have been to a number of hospitals in our area, Miami Valley area, and had a chance to meet with them. I was at Premier's Miami Valley Hospital not long ago, and they are very excited about that proposal because it helps them to be able to provide the care that they want to provide for not just their COVID patients, but because COVID is pushing on other services to be able to help them get through this crisis. And then, of course, it provides more funding for the vaccinations, not just the development of them, but also the distribution. That's really helpful for Ohio. I spoke to Governor DeWine earlier this week about this topic, and they are getting the vaccine out to the nursing homes first, now to seniors, first responders, but they needed some help on that. So that's in this package too. Also more funding for testing, contact tracing, and for the therapeutics. So that's all in there. The money for schools, I think, is very important. It's a substantial amount now for our K through 12 as well as colleges. But the K through 12 is really important to me because we need to get our kids back to school, in my view, and do it safely. And this funding will help to do that. So there's another number of provisions in here that may not relate directly to business, but really indirectly do. I know a number of people in Ohio who have said, I'd love to go back to work, but frankly, I can't afford childcare. So this helps in a couple ways. One, there is more funding for childcare, but two, these kids are more likely now to be back in school, so you don't have to be home with them during the school day. It's also just important for our kids, I think, to have the socialization that comes with our schools. And a lot of the work that we're hearing now that's been done on this, the research indicates that it's better for these young people to be in school. And so the teachers can lay eyes on them, make sure they're okay, and they're getting the education and the socialization that they need.
Education's more than just the curriculum and the books. It's learning how to socialize and learning how to grow with one another. As the father of two daughters, I appreciate your efforts to try to get them back in school. That works good for all of us parents that are out there.
Yeah. Chris, a final one I want to mention, and this is a special issue of mine, as you know, is this opioid addiction, and now meth and crystal meth and other what they call psychostimulants like cocaine that are growing in their presence in our communities. Dayton and the Miami Valley had one of the worst problems in the country, the worst in Ohio for a while, in overdoses. We really focused on it, and at the national level passed legislation, working with state and local individuals and a lot of nonprofits doing great work, including in the Miami Valley. And we began to reverse that trend. Now in the COVID period, unfortunately, it's come back. And that means there are more overdoses now, more people who are getting addicted, and sadly, more overdose deaths. This year, unfortunately, will be a record year. So it's heartbreaking for me because we really made progress. In the last 3 or 4 years, we reversed a tide that many people thought we couldn't, but now it's back. So this legislation also has funding for behavioral health and for drug addiction, $5 billion additional funding. So this is really important too. And we've already been able to make some progress in Ohio in terms of getting more of this funding out for treatment and recovery services and more prevention. But we're going to have to redouble our efforts there. The isolation that comes with COVID, the joblessness, the sense of despair has all added to this. So we need to respond to that and respond to it quickly. And that's in this package as well. And again, may not be a business issue per se, but boy, it affects all of us, including our businesses.
It's absolutely a business issue because when we have individuals, employees that either themselves or family members have addiction issues, it impacts the office, it impacts work, it impacts productivity, and it impacts their quality of life. So it absolutely is a business issue that our members do truly care about. And I appreciate your work on that front.
Great. Well, thanks, Chris. Great to be on with you. Any other questions that you got and you think the members might be interested in?
Well, Senator, I want to first thank you. It truly appears that this is a comprehensive COVID relief package. And I think Ohio has a strong advantage with having you as one of those 10 negotiators that were at the table trying to craft a package that was good for business, but for everybody in the state of Ohio. Having you really at the front, at the seat at the table is certainly an advantage to us. Tax deductibility, you mentioned that was one of our top priorities. So I really appreciate that being included. That's something our members wanted to see. Something else that they've been looking at, and I know you and I have talked about this before, is PPP forgiveness under a certain threshold. Has that been a discussion point? Do you have any new information on that would be helpful to our members?
Yes, the package includes easier forgiveness terms, specifically a lot of businesses in the Miami Valley took a small amount, less than $150,000, which doesn't seem small to them because it helped keep their doors open. But if you are one of those businesses, then the forgiveness becomes very simple. It's a one-page certification, and the notion was to just simplify it and to make forgiveness, a very inexpensive and hassle-free experience for small businesses. So that's in this package as well.
Oh, that's great. That's something that's really been important to them. They're struggling to keep their doors open and having to fill out a lot of paperwork and worry about whether it's going to be forgiven or not. Certainly can be a burden. So the fact that you guys have simplified it for them really is a help. So much appreciated. Senator, before we jump off, what's your thoughts on the first 100 days here of the year? Big plans or things that you anticipate to be working on?
Well, one I'm excited about that does affect a lot of small businesses is retirement security. I want to make it easier for small companies to offer retirement plans. And we've worked on this for years. It's been one of my priorities going back to my days in the House. And Ben Cardin, who's a Democrat colleague from Maryland, and I have once again joined together as we've done 3 other times. And in the past, we've passed legislation to expand the amount of money you can put into a 401k, let's say, or in your IRA, made it simpler, auto enrollment, those sorts of things. We're doing that again. And so we're making it easier for small businesses, reducing some of the hassle and regulations, also increasing the tax credit for small businesses, also helping part-time workers to be able to get into retirement plans. Only about 20% of them do now. That's a great opportunity to expand retirement savings. And also, we're trying to help with regard to people who are low income to get into retirement plans, which is good for everybody. So bottom line is, for businesses in Dayton, if we can pass the retirement security provisions that we've got, it will help them to be able to provide a retirement plan for themselves, their employees, and that helps everybody. That's really where the focus ought to be, because the larger businesses pretty much all provide a 401k and let people build up a retirement nest egg. That peace of mind in retirement is increasingly important to all Americans. By the way, we also have a catch-up contribution in there for seniors. In effect, if you're over 60, you get to put more aside, which is because a lot of the baby boomers are not saving enough. And we have a change to what's called minimum required distribution. Now at age 70 and a half, you got to start taking your money out. That was just increased a little bit over time, but we increase it all the way to 75 and say that if you have less than $100,000 in your account, you don't have to deal with the minimum required distribution at all, which is really helpful for a lot of workers who are staying in the workforce, particularly, into their 70s, which is increasingly the case. It was with my dad, who always used to complain about that provision. So we addressed that as well. And maybe most importantly, it's bipartisan, and not just in the Senate, but we also have legislation working in the House that's very similar, that is supported by Republicans and Democrats alike. So this is one where, as I told the Trump administration and now telling the Biden administration, this is a chance for us to get something done on a bipartisan basis. So I think the first 100 days, this will be one that, could be a nice accomplishment, not just for Congress, but more importantly for small businesses, for part-time workers, for our seniors, for the American people to be able to save more for retirement. Second is infrastructure. This is one that a lot of people care about in the Miami Valley. We've got infrastructure challenges, crumbling roads and bridges and that sort of thing. Look what just happened on Brent Spence. So that is something I think where there's a chance of bipartisanship. And then finally, I'll be the Republican, there'll be a lead Republican on a committee called the Homeland Security Government Affairs Committee. And we've got a big agenda, including trying to stop these cyber attacks on our government and on businesses. It turns out this huge attack, probably from Russia, was not just about the government, but also a lot of businesses and getting a lot of data that's personal data. So we got to tighten it up and tighten up also our defenses against China taking our technology and our research. And that's also within that committee's jurisdiction. And we're going to move legislation on that as well. It's bipartisan. So there's a lot going on and it'll be busy. And as usual, Chris, I work on both sides of the aisle to get stuff done. That's my goal. We've had over 60 of our bills signed into law by President Trump, but I also had 68 of my bills signed into law by President Obama, during the 8 years that he was there, or the 6 years, I guess, that I served with him, and the 4 years with Trump, over 60 bills. So we're going to keep working on legislation that makes a difference for the families of Ohio. And I'm looking forward to the challenge. It's always partisan and political here in Washington, and you got to figure out how to navigate through it and get stuff done, because that's what I was hired to do. So thank you. And again, I appreciate the chamber. You guys do an awesome job of reaching out to your members, letting them know what's available to help them get through this crisis. And we will get through it. I'm really optimistic that the second half of this year, 2021, is going to be strong for jobs, for growth, for business. I think there's a lot of pent up demand out there. People want to get back out and have a normal life, get their kids back to school, go back to restaurants. And I'm hopeful that we're going to see that this year.
That's great. Well, we appreciate all the work you're doing. Sounds like you have a busy 100 days coming up. As you know, you mentioned national defense. That's extremely important to us with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, as well as infrastructure. The Chamber has really been a strong advocate for infrastructure investments. I personally serve on the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's Transportation, Logistics, and Infrastructure Committee. So I look forward to working with you through that venue, but also through my role here at the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. So thanks for spending time with us today. Really appreciate your insight. It's helpful to our businesses, you being able to get this information out to them so that they can make decisions on what's best for their business is important. And I really appreciate you making that time.
Great. Thanks, Chris. And to your members, let us know if you have any questions. We're happy to try to help you work through these new provisions and anything else we can do to be helpful to keep jobs and growth moving in the Miami Valley. Take care.
You got it, Senator. Thank you very much.
You bet. Be good.